So obviously, we've already covered things like dailies and reviews, but I thought it'd be nice to reiterate, especially for those who are moving to visual effects coordinating or probably already into visual effects coordinating, just some simple notes that I've picked up over the years working with coordinators, and also coordinating some shows myself. Okay, so the first thing I would say on the slide is use this as your cheat sheet, but really just whenever you're doing reviews and dailies and you're writing notes, just keep it clear and succinct, because remember, the artist will be reading those. Now, of course, it's really hard to do that, especially when you're in a daily session and there's a supervisor, the client, and they're spitballing ideas on how to make the shot cool, and there's lots of notes flying around. But it's not easy, and I have to say, it takes a lot of practice as a coordinator to be able to take, in terms of the art of note taking. But if I was you, I'll work in bullet points, and these days most people just write it directly into F-Track, or if you're using Shotgun or another tool set. So it's a cool thing about things like F-Track, you can write it directly in there and the artist gets the notes. So because you're doing that within F-Track or whatever tool you're using, the artists are going to see those notes, which is why it's quite important to differentiate between client notes and internal creative notes. I'll show you an example in F-Track. So for example, if I was to just go into this shot here, and we go and write a note, and I was to say whatever the note is, and then I'll have a category, and in the category I've got internal and client. So whenever the artist sees the note, they can see it's an internal note, or they can see it's a client note. And then whenever you brief your artist about those notes or what to do during the day, you can say, please address all the internal notes and don't worry about client notes yet. These are just for pointers and so on. So it's very important to differentiate that. And you can in F-Track you can create more of these categories as well. For those who don't know how to do that, I'll show you that right now. So you go to settings and you go to note categories. Let's just discard that for now. And then you see you got internal client, so you can create another one, and you can call these ones, I don't know, call them has notes, if it's me that's doing it, or you can call them, whoever it is, you can call them 3D lead notes, 3D department notes, and create. So now all these all notes do 3D department. You can create as many type of categories, and then when you go back to to put your notes in there, and we go back to this one here, and we'll write down notes, something like texture quality too low, and then we can just quickly change that to 3D department. So therefore it's a 3D department note, it's a category of 3D departments. Okay, so let's just go back to our slides. Okay, so that's what I mean from differentiating between client notes. Also, during note taking and also during coordinating the show, obviously you're going to be getting lots of changes and feedback from the clients. So it's important to, whenever you're assigning these tasks for implementing changes, is to, just pay attention to how much time is left on a shot, to how much additional time is required in order to implement those changes in notes. So if we go back to F-Track, and we look at here, so already if the client's giving more notes on this particular asset here, which is the buzz report graphic element, and already gone over by at least 20 hours here, then if you're going to assign more tasks like change tasks or feedback tasks, retakes, or whatever you want to call them, you just got to bear in mind that you're already over on this shot. So whatever these tweaks and changes, you have to find those hours elsewhere. So you have to go through your database and look at any shots that have been delivered. Like for example, this one's completed. You bidded 8 hours, but you've obviously only used an hour. So you have 7 hours to play with. So you can move some of these hours into these changes here that you want to make changes to that are already over. So it's worth making note of that. This is why when you're coordinated, you're pretty much looking at these hours and constantly receiving notes, and it's your job as coordinator to figure out where you can place those hours. And again, using F-Track, you can see all of this instantly. Okay, so that's that. Yeah, and obviously I've put things like tools like Shotgun are good for review tools. Actually, yeah, let's have a little talk about the whole review tool process as well, because obviously I showed you in one of the classes, I think it was class 2 or 3, that how to do reviews and using F-Track for reviews, and it's very good for for VFX databases that work on a cloud system like F-Track. But at the same time, you have to bear in mind things like latency and lag with online. Not a lot of clients are patient. In fact, a lot of clients are always running around doing a lot of things. They're dealing with editorial, they're dealing with probably their next project or audio. So they don't really want to be bogged down with waiting for VFX shots to load up. So what I tend to do is here's a tip for you guys, is sometimes if I have a client that just doesn't want to like have an FTrack login to review notes and stuff, or they can't make it on site at the studio for whatever reason, they may be abroad doing pickup shoots or reshoots or whatever, then I have a client Skype session open. So I have a Skype session open and I share my screen. So as we're talking on Skype and we're reviewing the shots on Skype, I'm able to make those notes. So there's a good tip that you can have this open in Skype and make those notes. Because it's a browser based in Chrome, you can make your screen big. It's a really good way of reviewing your shots in FTrack with the client present via Skype. So that's a little tip. Well, obviously both ends need to have a reasonable web connection speed, so you have to bear that in mind. And lastly, this is something, again, this is another like tip, I would say, but this is more for VFX producers rather than coordinators now. But if you're a VFX producer, you got to understand that each client is different. But one thing they have in common is they always want more than they can afford, and that is a fact. And whoever's on the course that's also produced, I'm sure you can verify that too. Okay, so basically the thing that I like to say is always refer to the agreed budget and timeline. So you'll be in the middle of dailies, you'll have your FTrack screen open, and you're already seeing that, if we go back to FTrack, we're already seeing there's loads of shots that are going over here, but obviously the client wants to push it, and obviously the VFX supervisor wants to push it as well, because he or she really wants to push these shots to make sure that they're amazing quality. But you as the producer, obviously you have to think from the numbers game that, we don't have any more money in the budget left, or we don't have any more time left. So it's always good to have FTrack open and look at these numbers as you're, if you're discussing with the client. You don't have to show the client the FTrack page, but just have it open so that you can see it. And just refer to the budget. But also, when sending out material for client to review, especially shots and sequences, what I tend to do is as we get towards crunch mode or towards a hectic time in the project, I try to not just send single shots that are on a single loop. I try to send a sequence with the shots in there so they can watch it in context, because a lot of clients will just look at the shot over and over and over again, and to be honest with you, no one watches a shot over and over again. When it's in a sequence, it goes by really fast. What we have to make sure that nothing pops out. So obviously you review it on its own when you're doing a first pass comp, but when you're doing it for final sign-offs, I always recommend, it's just an opinion, recommendation based on my experience of dealing with clients and visual effect producing shows, both TV and features, that run it in a sequence, and then that way you get much more of a sign-off. So that's a little tip that I like to always share. Lastly, never agree to any additional shots on the same day. You are going to get clients during review, during dailies, saying, hey, can we have additional shots? Or can we push this a bit further by extending the shot or having 5 creatures instead of 1? That sort of thing. You got to remember that, you as a VFX producer has done a bid, and that bid is based on an original brief. So if the client is, we call it scope creep. So scope creep is kind of a term we use where the client's kind of creeped out of their original brief or the original scope. Then never agree to that on the same day. Obviously you want to keep the client happy, because you obviously, your job is to make sure that the client's always happy, so you get repeated business, repeated work that come back your way. But don't agree on the same day. Tell them, look, just say that you're going to think about it and you'll look into it. You can't promise anything, but you surely like to look into it and see what we can do to help. And then obviously consult with the VFX supervisor. Never agree with any creative or technical requests without consulting the VFX supervisor, because at the end of the day, the supervisor wouldn't tell the producer how to budget and schedule. So it's likewise, you have that respect as well.